There's a place on this planet where two ancient currents have been colliding for millions of years, where the surface of the ocean conceals an order of power more ruthless than any kingdom ever forged by man. Beneath that apparent stillness, immense shadows move in perfect formation. They are a pod of orcas. From the opposite direction, another predator advances, 6 meters of pure muscle, more than 50 triangular teeth as sharp as scalpels, black, empty eyes that reflect absolutely nothing. The great white shark, a masterpiece of 400 million years of natural selection. Two forces, the same waters. Only one will leave this place as the absolute arbiter of life and death. But the answer will not be found in strength. It lies in something far deeper, something that took humanity millennia to begin to understand. Welcome to the Sea of Japan, where every layer of water is a kingdom, every species is a piece of the puzzle, and the ocean does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most intelligent. But to understand who truly reigns at the apex of this hierarchy, one must first understand the world that created them. A world that begins where two great currents meet. 64 million square miles, 25,000 islands, one single ocean. The Pacific, the largest body of water on the planet, stretches from the Arctic to the Antarctic, covering nearly 1/3 of the Earth's total surface. Its average depth exceeds 4,300 meters. Its total volume is equivalent to more than 10 times the combined volume of all the Earth's continents. It holds more than 50% of all the planet's free water. But not all parts of this immense ocean are equally rich. Some waters are near perfect deserts, transparent and empty, where nutrient concentrations are so low that life can barely sustain itself. In others, life erupts with an abundance that defies any human calculation. The coast of Japan is one of those places. From the south, the Kuroshio Current carries warm tropical waters, flowing along the Japanese archipelago with extraordinary speed and thermal energy. It is the second most powerful ocean current in the world, surpassed only by the Gulf Stream in the North Atlantic. The Kuroshio Current transports between 50 and 80 million cubic meters of water per second, a figure roughly equivalent to 2,000 times the combined flow of every river on Earth, discharging simultaneously. Its surface temperature ranges between 18 and 28 degrees Celsius, even during the winter months. It flows northeast at a speed of between 1 and 2 meters per second at its central core, creating an invisible thermal highway that connects the tropical waters of the western Pacific with the temperate latitudes of the north. From the north, the cold and nutrient-rich Oyashio Current descends from the Bering and Okhotsk seas, carrying with it millions of tons of phytoplankton, zooplankton, and dissolved organic matter accumulated in polar waters during months of Arctic darkness and temperatures that fall several degrees below zero. The Oyashio Current transports waters at between 1 and 4 degrees Celsius, a thermal difference of between 15 and 20 degrees compared to the Kuroshio Current. That, in oceanographic terms, is equivalent to bringing two completely different worlds into contact. When these two water masses collide off the northeastern coast of Japan, in the region oceanographers call the Kuroshio-Oyashio confluence zone, one of the most important and productive phenomena on the planet occurs. The warmer, less dense water floats above the cold water. But the difference in density and the irregular topography of the seafloor in that region force the deep, nutrient-rich waters to rise toward the surface in a process called upwelling. Nitrates, phosphates, and silicate, elements essential for phytoplankton growth, that in other parts of the ocean remain trapped in the deep layers unreachable by sunlight, are here pushed up into the photic zone, the surface layer where light penetrates enough to allow photosynthesis. Microscopic algae explode in densities that can exceed 1 million cells per milliliter of water. Phytoplankton blooms in patches that from space are visible as swirls of brilliant green on the gray surface of the ocean. And from that invisible explosion of microscopic life, the entire food chain of the northwestern Pacific ignites from the bottom up, with a speed and scale that has no equivalent in any known terrestrial ecosystem. The Kuroshio-Oyashio convergence is one of the 3 richest fishing grounds on the entire planet. The herring arrive first, millions of them, tens of millions. During peak seasonal productivity, a herring school in the northwestern Pacific can stretch for several kilometers in length and reach densities of several hundred individuals per cubic meter of water. They are animals between 20 and 30 centimeters long, silver and swift, moving as a single organism thanks to a hydrodynamic pressure detection system that integrates the information of every individual in the school simultaneously. When a predator attacks from a given angle, the pressure wave produced by its movement travels through the water and reaches the lateral line receptors of the nearest herring in less than 1 millisecond. The escape response then propagates through the entire school, like a wave that travels faster than any individual predator can follow. This collective synchronization is the only defense of an animal that individually has none. So dense during peak season that the surface of the sea turns silver like a broken mirror under the morning sun, visible from several kilometers away. Then comes the Pacific mackerel, Scomber japonicus, one of the most abundant pelagic fish in these waters, capable of forming schools of several million individuals that move following temperature isotherms, with a precision no human instrument could match without satellite technology. The mackerel is a relatively warm-blooded fish, capable of maintaining its muscle temperature several degrees above that of the surrounding water, thanks to a counter-current heat exchange system similar to, though less developed than, that of the great white shark. This capacity allows it to maintain its swimming speed and school coordination even in waters colder than those preferred by other pelagic species. Then comes the squid, Todorodes pacificus, the Japanese flying squid, which performs daily vertical migrations of between 200 and 400 meters in depth, ascending each night to feed on zooplankton and small fish in the surface zone, and descending at dawn to avoid its daytime predators. The Japanese squid can reach swimming speeds of up to 30 kilometers per hour through jet propulsion, expelling water at high pressure through its siphon in the direction opposite to its desired movement. It can change direction instantaneously by reversing the flow of the siphon, a maneuverability that no fish of comparable size can match. And behind all of them, still invisible but already in motion, the apex predators that have spent millions of years following these exact same seasonal migration routes in this same ocean. From the frozen Hokkaido in the north, where seals and sea lions rest on drifting ice floes, to the tropical Okinawa in the south, where coral reefs shimmer like underwater cities lit from within. The deepest place on Earth is not far from here, the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters below sea level, deep enough to submerge Mount Everest with more than 2 kilometers of dark water still above its summit. But life does not begin in the abyss. It begins in the sunlit waters, in the most vibrant coral reefs on the planet. And there, among millions of creatures competing for every available centimeter of space, one tiny species holds one of the most extraordinary biological secrets in the entire ocean. If the ocean is a chessboard of power, the clownfish are not pawns. They are the most sophisticated survivors of the lowest tier. But the lowest tier is not safe. Nowhere in the ocean is completely safe. Above the reef, sunlight illuminates an apparently serene world. A group of bottlenose dolphins, Tursiops truncatus, passes in formation through the open waters, swift and silent. The bottlenose dolphin is one of the mammals with the highest encephalization quotient after humans. Its brain weighs between 1,500 and 1,700 grams and presents a degree of cortical complexity that neuroscientists are still mapping. They are capable of recognizing themselves in a mirror, of learning multi-step behavioral sequences, of transmitting hunting techniques culturally across generations, and of communicating through a system of individualized whistles that functions as a proper name. The only system of individual acoustic identity documented outside of human beings. But even bottlenose dolphins, with all their intelligence and speed, avoid certain areas of these waters when a particular presence makes itself felt. Because in the middle depths, in the twilight zone where light begins to lose its battle against the darkness, another species patrols. It is not colorful, it is not small, and it maintains no symbiotic relationship with anything or anyone. A dorsal fin cuts the surface, slow, steady, like a blade drawn across silk without a sound. The fragile beauty of the reef left behind is nothing but a facade. Down here, the laws are completely different. Here, size is power, speed is judgment, and teeth are the final sentence. 6 meters, more than 2 tons, more than 50 triangular teeth. The great white shark, Carcharodon carcharias, a creature that 400 million years of evolution have sculpted into a predator of a perfection that no human engineering has ever matched. 400 million years. Before the dinosaurs appeared on Earth, before trees grew on land, before flowers existed, the ancestors of sharks were already swimming in the oceans of the Devonian 400 million years ago, when complex life on land was barely taking its first tentative steps out of the water. And while everything around them changed, continents drifting, ice ages advancing and retreating, 5 mass extinctions that wiped out between 70 and 96% of all species, then in existence, the shark remained. Not because it was immune to the conditions that killed nearly everything else, but because its fundamental design was efficient enough to adapt to every new scenario, while keeping its effectiveness as a predator fully intact. The modern great white shark belongs to the order Lamniformes, and has its oldest fossil record dated to approximately 16 million years ago, in the Middle Miocene. The largest adult specimens scientifically documented with direct measurements reach 6 meters in length. The weight of a 6-meter specimen can exceed 2 metric tons. Females are significantly larger than males, a marked case of reverse sexual dimorphism. The largest documented females surpass the largest males by at least 1 meter in length and several hundred kilograms in weight. The jaws of the great white shark are a work of bioengineering with no known equivalent. They are composed of calcified cartilage, not bone, which makes them lighter than if they were bony while being equally resistant to the bite forces they must withstand. The teeth are arranged in multiple concentric rows. There are normally between 3 and 5 rows visible in each jaw, with up to 7 or 8 additional rows in various stages of development behind them. Only the first row is upright and functional at any given moment. When a tooth in the first row is lost or broken, the tooth in the second row rotates forward to take its place in a process that can be completed in between 1 and 2 days. Over the course of its lifetime, which can exceed 70 years, a great white shark can lose and replace between 30 and 50,000 teeth. The teeth of the upper jaw are wider and more triangular, designed to cut soft tissue and bone. Those of the lower jaw are narrower and more pointed, designed to hold the prey in place while the upper jaw performs the cut. When the shark attacks, the lower jaw projects forward first to anchor the prey, and the upper jaw descends upon it like a precision blade. The bite force of the great white shark has been estimated through biomechanical models at between 18,000 and 20,000 newtons, making it one of the most powerful bites of any living animal in the ocean. But what makes this species truly exceptional among fish is not its dentition. It is its thermal physiology. The great white shark is a regional endothermic fish, capable of maintaining certain internal tissues at a temperature significantly higher than that of the surrounding water. Most fish are ectothermic. Their body temperature matches that of the water. In cold waters, they become metabolically slower. Their muscles work with less power, and their reflexes slow in direct proportion to the drop in temperature. The great white shark has a specialized circulatory system called the rete mirabile, which in Latin means admirable network. This system consists of a network of arterial and venous capillaries intimately intertwined that acts as a countercurrent heat exchanger. The warm arterial blood coming from the active muscles transfers its heat to the cold venous blood coming from the surface layers before it reaches the muscles. The heat generated by muscular activity is retained inside the body instead of being lost to the cold water. This allows the great white shark to maintain its lateral muscles, brain, eyes, and stomach at temperatures between 5 and 15 degrees Celsius above the temperature of the surrounding water. In the freezing waters of Hokkaido, where temperatures can fall below 10 degrees Celsius, the great white shark operates with its muscles at between 15 and 20 degrees, giving it a decisive advantage in speed and power over any cold-blooded prey attempting to escape. Its sensory systems are equally extraordinary in their sophistication and degree of specialization. The sense of smell of the great white shark can detect the presence of blood dissolved in water at concentrations of 1 part per billion, the equivalent of a single drop of blood dissolved in an Olympic swimming pool. The detection is not only quantitative but also directional. The shark can determine from which direction the odor source is coming by comparing the concentration between its 2 nostrils, which are separated from each other, and sample the water in a slightly asynchronous manner. This directional detection system allows it to orient itself toward the odor source with a precision that increases as it draws closer. Its inner ear can detect frequencies between 10 and 800 Hz, with particular sensitivity in the low frequencies between 10 and 200 Hz, exactly the range of frequencies produced by the irregular movements of a wounded fish or a distressed marine mammal. The lateral line, a system of fluid-filled canals running along both flanks of the body from the head to the caudal fin, detects pressure disturbances produced by the movement of objects in the water at distances of up to 100 meters under optimal conditions. The ampullae of Lorenzini are pores distributed mainly across the snout and lower jaw, visible as small dark spots on the lighter-colored skin surrounding the mouth. They are electroreceptors capable of detecting the electric fields produced by the muscular contractions of any living animal, including the heartbeat of prey hidden beneath the sand at a distance of up to 30 centimeters. Each ampulla of Lorenzini is a canal filled with a conductive gel that transmits fluctuations in the external electric field to specialized receptor cells at its base. The great white shark has between 1,500 and 2,500 ampullae of Lorenzini distributed across its head, creating an electrical detection grid of extraordinary resolution for the distance ranges at which it operates during the final phase of an attack, when the eyes have already rotated back into their sockets for protection, and vision is no longer the primary guiding sense. The vision of the great white shark functions differently depending on light conditions. In well-lit waters, it can distinguish details at distances of up to 25 meters. In low-light conditions, a reflective membrane called the tapetum lucidum, similar to the one found in the eyes of cats, amplifies the available light, significantly increasing its visual sensitivity in dim conditions. The retina of the great white shark contains both rods, sensitive to light intensity in low-light conditions, and cones, sensitive to colors under good illumination. Recent studies suggest that the great white shark may be capable of perceiving colors in the blue-green range, although its color perception is probably more limited than that of mammals. But the most terrifying weapon of the great white shark is not any of these sensory systems individually, nor its self-renewing dentition. It is a hunting tactic that integrates all of those systems into a perfectly coordinated sequence. The breach attack. The most striking technique documented in any pelagic predator in the ocean. The shark descends to a depth of between 20 and 30 meters, directly beneath its target prey, generally a seal or sea lion swimming unsuspectingly at the surface. From that lower position, with its eyes oriented upward, The prey is silhouetted against the illuminated photic zone, a sharply defined dark shape against the bright background of the surface. The visual contrast is at its maximum. Any movement of the prey is detected immediately. The shark orients its body vertically with its head pointing toward the surface and begins to accelerate with powerful thrusts of its heterocercal caudal fin. In the final stretch of the attack, it reaches speeds of between 40 and 45 kilometers per hour. When it reaches the surface, the momentum accumulated by that 2-ton mass in vertical acceleration can be enough for the shark to leave the water completely for brief instants, rising into the air with the prey trapped between its jaws before falling back into the sea. This behavior has been documented especially in the waters of False Bay off the South African coast, where the high density of Cape Fur seals and the topographic conditions of the seafloor favor this type of vertical attack. Breaches have been documented in which the shark raises its body up to 3 meters above the surface of the water. The seal has no time to detect the threat or react. The attack from below completely eliminates the possibility of prior visual detection, because the shark remains in the shadow zone beneath the prey throughout the entire approach phase. The sensory receptors of the great white shark process the exact position of the prey with such precision that in the vast majority of attacks, the initial point of impact is at the central part of the prey's body, maximizing the damage with the first bite. Seals that survive a failed first attack have a chance of escaping because the shark needs time to regain speed and reorient itself. Those that receive a centered first impact rarely survive. Great white sharks are long-lived, late-maturing animals. Females do not reach sexual maturity until 12 to 15 years of age. Gestation lasts between 11 and 18 months, the longest gestation period of any known shark. Females give birth to between 2 and 10 pups per litter. The pups measure between 1.2 and 1.5 meters at birth and are completely independent from the very first instant. No form of parental care exists after birth. Global population estimates for the great white shark indicate between 3,000 and 5,000 sexually mature adults across all the world's oceans. It is a globally scarce species that takes decades to recover from any significant population reduction, given the lateness of its sexual maturity and the low rate of its reproduction. In the waters of Japan, they are the masters of the middle depths, where light and shadow meet, and every living thing is a potential target. But even the most perfectly constructed killer of 400 million years of evolution has something that makes it flee without a fight. And what makes 2 tons of predator flee will appear later in this story. For now, on a distant shore, under the cover of complete darkness, a very different creature drags itself slowly toward the sand. A beach in southern Japan at night. A large dark shape emerges slowly from the water's edge. Every movement across the sand is a colossal effort. A body designed to fly through water now fights against gravity on land. The sea turtle, a reptile that has swum the oceans for more than 100 million years. Modern marine chelonians descend from turtles that colonized the ocean during the Cretaceous, between 190 million years ago, when non-avian dinosaurs still dominated the terrestrial ecosystems. They progressively developed limbs transformed into hydrodynamic flippers, the capacity to hold their breath for extended periods, and the osmoregulation mechanisms that allow them to eliminate excess salt from seawater through specialized lacrimal glands. Sea turtles survived the asteroid impact that ended the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. They survived the glaciations that reshaped continents and sea levels on multiple occasions. They survived everything this planet threw at them for 100 million years. And tonight, this female returns to the same beach where she was born. Perhaps 40 years ago, perhaps 50. Natal homing. The capacity to return to the exact place of birth after decades of wandering the open ocean across thousands of kilometers of water with no permanent visual reference. Satellite telemetry studies have allowed researchers to track sea turtles during transoceanic migrations of up to 12,000 kilometers in length, from feeding grounds to nesting beaches, with a precision of return that is difficult to explain without understanding the mechanism that makes it possible. The primary mechanism is magnetoreception, the ability to detect both the intensity and the inclination of the Earth's magnetic field. Every point on the Earth's surface has a unique combination of magnetic intensity and inclination that acts as a coordinate in a global reference system that exists without the need for any artificial signal. Turtles memorize the magnetic signature of their natal beach at the moment of birth, during the brief journey from the nest to the water. This magnetic memory persists for decades with extraordinary fidelity. When the adult female is ready to nest for the first time, between 12 and 30 years after her birth depending on the species, she locates the approximate area of her natal beach using the memorized magnetic coordinates and then refines the location to a scale of meters using olfactory cues, the orientation of currents and waves, and possibly visual cues from the coastal profile. The turtle excavates the nest with her rear flippers, whose modified scales act as scoops, digging a cylindrical shaft between 30 and 60 centimeters deep in the damp sand. The excavation process can last between 20 and 40 minutes. The egg laying itself takes an additional 15 to 30 minutes. Sea turtles deposit between 80 and 120 eggs per nest. The eggs are spherical, between 3 and 5 centimeters in diameter, with a soft and flexible shell that allows them to compress slightly as they fall without breaking. Each female can nest between 2 and 7 times in a single reproductive season, with intervals of between 10 and 14 days between clutches. After nesting, the female does not return to the site. Intervals between reproductive seasons range from 2 to 5 years. The incubation of the eggs depends entirely on the heat of the sand. There is no parental warmth of any kind. The temperature of the sand during incubation determines not only the speed of embryo development, but also the sex of the hatchlings. This mechanism is called temperature-dependent sex determination. In sea turtles, there is a pivot temperature range around 29 degrees Celsius that varies slightly between species. Below that pivot range, mainly males are born. Above it, mainly females are born. Research published by the University of Queensland in 2018 determined that more than 99% of the hatchlings born on the northern beaches of the Australian Great Barrier Reef are female, as a direct consequence of the increase in sand temperature produced by global warming. The sexual disproportion is already so marked that researchers consider the long-term reproductive capacity of these populations to be seriously compromised. Between 45 and 70 days after laying, the sand begins to stir from within. All the hatchlings in a single nest hatch in approximate synchrony, stimulated by chemical signals produced by the first individuals to break their shells. The synchronization of hatching has a clear adaptive function. The collective movement of dozens of hatchlings loosening the sand above the nest creates an elevator effect that allows the deepest hatchlings to reach the surface without the effort that would be impossible for a single animal of such small size. The hatchlings emerge mainly at night, when sand temperatures are lower and the activity of diurnal predators is reduced. They orient toward the sea using the brightness of the ocean horizon, which under natural conditions is always more luminous than the land horizon. They run, if that desperate movement can be called running, their small bodies tilting, falling, righting themselves, continuing without stopping. But between the nest and the sea lies a field of enemies. Seabirds diving from the sky, ghost crabs waiting in the shadows. The distance from the nest to the water can be between 10 and 50 meters. For a hatchling weighing less than 25 grams, that distance is a marathon of life and death that concentrates in minutes all the risk the ocean can offer. Once in the water, coastal predatory fish wait in the first waves. For every 1,000 hatchlings that emerge from the nest, between 1 and 5 may reach reproductive adulthood. This is the relentless arithmetic of survival in the ocean. And this cycle that has functioned for 100 million years is now under a threat that turtles cannot see, cannot dodge, and cannot adapt to in time to overcome. The greatest threat does not come from crabs or birds. It comes from heat, and from a heat that can no longer be stopped by any local decision made on any beach in any country. 600 meters below the surface, the mesopelagic zone. Sunlight loses its battle centimeter by centimeter against the darkness of the water. 1,000 meters. The darkness begins to consume everything. Bioluminescent creatures flicker in the eternal night like signals of a language we still do not understand. 1,500 meters. The bathypelagic zone. The temperature falls to between 2 and 4 degrees Celsius. The hydrostatic pressure is approximately 150 atmospheres. Every square centimeter of any surface submerged here bears the equivalent weight of 1.5 tons. Research submarines designed specifically for these depths use titanium hulls with walls several centimeters thick. 3,000 meters, 4,000, 6,000, 9,000. The abyss does not stop. 16,000, 27,000. Nearly 11,000 meters exactly at the deepest point. A fracture in the Earth's crust so deep that if you placed Mount Everest inside it, its summit would still be more than 2 kilometers below the surface. At those depths, darkness is not the absence of light. It is a physical presence, dense, heavy, absolute. But the abyss is not empty. It has a master, and its master does not use its eyes to see or its ears to hear in any conventional sense. It uses sound, a sound that no other creature on this planet is capable of producing. 236 decibels, the most powerful sound produced by any animal in the known history of life on Earth. To place this figure in perspective, a fighter jet in afterburner generates approximately 140 decibels at 1 meter distance. A controlled dynamite explosion, 180. A space rocket at the moment of launch, 196. The decibel scale is logarithmic. Every increase of 10 decibels is equivalent to multiplying the sound intensity by 10. A sound of 236 decibels is approximately 10,000 times more intense than that of the rocket at launch. From the abyss, a click resonates in the cold, dark water. Then another. Then a continuous and relentless chain of acoustic pulses propagating kilometers in every direction through the water. The sperm whale, Visitor macrocephalus, the largest of all toothed animals that have ever existed on Earth. Adult males reach between 15 and 18 meters in length. The largest recorded specimens exceed 20 meters. The weight of a large adult male can surpass 50 metric tons. The head of the sperm whale is the largest and most disproportionate anatomical structure of any known animal relative to total body size. It represents between 1/4 and 1/3 of the total body length. And inside that extraordinary head are housed 2 structures unique in the animal kingdom: the spermaceti organ and the melon organ. The spermaceti organ is a cavity several meters in length, filled with a waxy oil called spermaceti, whose chemical composition changes from liquid to solid state depending on temperature. The warm blood flowing through the organ can keep it liquid. The cold seawater entering through the nasal passages can partially solidify it. This change of state alters the density of the organ and consequently can influence the buoyancy of the animal during deep dives. But the most documented function of the spermaceti organ is acoustic. The sperm whale produces its vocalizations by forcing air at high pressure through a structure called the museau du singe, the animal's only functional nasal opening, located at the front of the skull beneath the spermaceti organ. The air pulse generates an acoustic pressure wave that bounces backward inside the head, resonating in the cavities of the spermaceti organ and the frontal sac before being projected forward through the melon. the mass of specialized fatty tissue that forms the rounded front of the head and acts as an acoustic lens that focuses and directs the emitted beam of sound. The sperm whale reads the returning waves with its lower jaw, which contains a continuous oil-filled channel that conducts acoustic vibrations directly to the inner ear with extraordinary sensitivity. With every click, the sperm whale builds a three-dimensional map of the world surrounding it in absolute darkness and at pressures that would destroy any equivalent human measuring instrument. It does not need eyes. It sees with sound. And what it searches for in that darkness is the giant squid. The giant squid, Architeuthis dux, is the largest known invertebrate. The largest recorded specimens measure up to 13 meters from the tip of the tentacles to the tail fin. Its eyes are the largest of any currently living known animal, with documented diameters of up to 27 centimeters. The largest eye diameter documented in any extinct animal is that of the ichthyosaur Temnodontosaurus, with eyes of up to 30 centimeters. But among living animals, the giant squid has no rival in this parameter. Eyes that large are a direct adaptation to hunting in conditions of extremely low light, where capturing every available photon can be the difference between detecting the predator and failing to detect it until it is too late. The giant squid has 8 arms and 2 longer hunting tentacles. All of them are equipped with suckers. In the giant squid, the suckers are bordered by toothed chitinous rings between 1 and 3 centimeters in diameter that dig into the flesh of the prey when the squid attempts to grip it or when it attempts to free itself from a hold. These toothed rings are what produce the circular scars found on the skin of all adult sperm whales. The confrontation between the sperm whale and the giant squid is one of the great unsolved mysteries of marine biology. No camera has ever recorded it under natural conditions. The depths where it occurs are inaccessible to any current observation system. The sperm whale detects the squid through echolocation in total darkness. The squid, with its enormous eyes adapted to dim light, can detect the bioluminescence produced by other organisms disturbed by the advancing sperm whale before the squid itself is within the acoustic range of the predator. When the sperm whale manages to catch a large squid, the squid responds by using its tentacles and toothed suckers to attempt to free itself, driving the chitinous rings into the soft skin around the sperm whale's head and along its flanks. The scars found on stranded or captured adult sperm whales demonstrate that some of these battles are extraordinarily violent. Some scars have diameters of up to 40 centimeters, implying squid of dimensions we still do not fully understand. Every adult sperm whale carries those scars without exception. Every single one. Not a single documented adult specimen without them in any published study. In the stomachs of sperm whales, squid beaks are found in quantities that can exceed 20,000 in a single specimen, accumulated over decades because the beak is the only part of the squid that the sperm whale's digestive system cannot break down. The dives of the sperm whale are the deepest of any known mammal. The documented record via depth telemetry is 3,228 meters. The duration of a single dive can exceed 90 minutes, with the documented record standing at 138 minutes. To achieve these dives, the sperm whale has developed multiple physiological adaptations that work in concert. Its lungs can collapse completely under pressure without being damaged, thanks to the extreme flexibility of its rib cage. All reserve oxygen is stored in the blood and muscles, not in the lungs as in terrestrial mammals. The hemoglobin and myoglobin of the sperm whale have a significantly greater affinity for oxygen than those of most terrestrial mammals, allowing them to store more oxygen per kilogram of tissue. The sperm whale's spleen is disproportionately large for its body size and acts as an additional reservoir of red blood cells that are released into the bloodstream at the start of each deep dive, momentarily increasing the oxygen-carrying capacity of the blood at the moment it is most needed. Heart rate drops dramatically during the dive, from between 30 and 60 beats per minute at the surface to approximately 2 beats per minute at maximum depth. Circulation is redistributed to prioritize the heart and brain, reducing blood flow to the muscles and extremities to the minimum compatible with the survival of those tissues. After a deep dive, the sperm whale can rest at the surface for hours, breathing slowly, recovering. The social communities of sperm whales are organized matriarchally. Adult females and their calves live in groups of between 6 and 20 individuals in temperate and tropical waters. These groups display sophisticated cooperative behaviors. When a female needs to make a deep dive to hunt, the other females in the group remain near the surface, protecting the calves from potential predators. Groups have been observed forming defensive circles with the calves at the center and the adults oriented outward in the presence of orcas, with their tail flukes ready to strike. A newborn calf weighs around 1,000 kilograms at birth, after a gestation of between 14 and 16 months. The mother nurses it with a milk whose lipid content can exceed 50%, designed to transform that calf into the giant it must become in the shortest possible time. The communication system of the sperm whale is the most complex documented in any non-human animal after that of the orcas. Codas are sequences of between 3 and 40 clicks, organized in specific rhythmic patterns that vary between groups and between geographic regions. Researchers from the Sperm Whale Project, which has spent more than 2 decades documenting sperm whale vocalizations, have identified more than 20 distinct codas used by different groups. Some of these vocal patterns are shared by all groups in a given region, suggesting a function of regional identity. Others are exclusive to individual family groups, suggesting a function of group identity comparable to what in human cultures we would call a family name. Adult males abandon the family groups upon reaching sexual maturity and progressively migrate toward higher latitudes, where temperatures are between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius. Solitary, immense, silent except for that relentless click of 236 decibels that pierces the abyss in search of squid that no other predator can reach. But even the sperm whale, with all its depth and all its power, does not occupy the highest rung of the chain. It possesses immense power, but it hunts alone. And in the ocean, solitude carries a price that no muscle can pay. We return to the surface, where the light comes back, where a pod advances in perfect formation, synchronized, with a coordination that no human army has ever managed to equal. The orca, Orchinus orca, the largest dolphin on the planet. Orcas are not whales. They belong to the family Delphinidae, the same group that includes the bottlenose dolphin, the common dolphin, and the striped dolphin. The popular name killer whale is a historical misclassification. Adult males reach between 7 and 9 meters in length, with some individuals recorded in Alaska and Antarctica exceeding 10 meters. The weight of a large adult male ranges between 5 and 6 metric tons. Females are smaller, between 5 and 7 meters, and between 3 and 4 tons, with a life expectancy of between 80 and 90 years. Under natural conditions, significantly greater than that of males, which rarely exceeds 60. The dorsal fin of males can reach up to 1.8 meters in height, the tallest in proportion to body size of any cetacean. The function of the dorsal fin is not only hydrodynamic, but also thermoregulatory, as it contains an extensive vascular network through which the animal can dissipate heat in warm waters or retain it in cold waters by regulating blood flow to that tissue. The brain of the orca weighs between 5.5 and 6 kilograms in adult males. In terms of absolute volume, it is one of the largest brains of any living animal. But the raw weight of the brain is not the most significant measure of cognitive capacity. More revealing is the structure of the neocortex, the outer layer of the brain associated with complex information processing, planning, and reasoning. The neocortex of the orca presents a folding complexity comparable to that of the human being. The brain of the orca also contains von Economo neurons, a very rare cell type that for a long time was believed to be exclusive to great apes and humans, and which is associated with complex social processing capacities and rapid decision-making in changing social contexts. Orcas reach sustained speeds of between 30 and 40 kilometers per hour, with attack speeds of up to 55 kilometers per hour in short bursts. No known shark can sustain comparable speeds in prolonged pursuits. The great white shark reaches its 40 kilometers per hour only in the final stretch of the vertical breach attack. In sustained horizontal swimming, the orca is always faster. But speed is not the orca's primary weapon. Its primary weapon is collective intelligence applied with a precision that no other predator in the ocean has achieved in any known ecosystem. The hunting techniques documented in orcas are extremely diverse and vary between geographically separated populations in a way that irrefutably demonstrates that these are culturally learned behaviors and not genetically coded instinctive drives. In the North Atlantic, off the coasts of Norway and Iceland, orcas hunt herring using the technique called carousel feeding. The group locates a herring school and begins working in a coordinated manner to concentrate it. Some orcas swim in circles around the school from below, blowing bubbles that create a visual curtain that the fish instinctively avoid because they associate it with danger. Others swim along the upper periphery to prevent the fish from escaping toward the surface. Gradually, the school compresses into a denser and denser sphere until the fish have no space to maneuver effectively. Then the orcas take turns lunging into the sphere and striking the herring with their tail flukes, blows that can kill or stun several fish simultaneously. Each orca consumes one stunned fish after each strike and returns to its position in the circular formation. The process continues with a perfect rotation of roles until the school disperses or is exhausted. For this technique to work, each orca must maintain its relative position within the formation, while the others perform their attack turns, which requires a permanent awareness of the position and movement of every member of the group simultaneously. In Argentine Patagonia, off the coasts of the Valdez Peninsula, orcas have developed a completely different technique that scientists call intentional stranding. The orcas identify sea lion or elephant seal pups located in the strip of very shallow water between the shore and the open sea. The group coordinates an attack in which one or several orcas deliberately launch themselves onto the beach, using the momentum of a wave, capture the pup with their jaws, and then reintroduce themselves into the water by combining body movement with the backwash of the wave. This technique requires precise calibration of the size and speed of the waves, the slope of the beach, and the exact moment of the launch to prevent the orca from becoming permanently stranded on land. The young orcas of Punta Norte learn this technique by accompanying their mothers for months, observing the attempts of the adults and practicing themselves in the coastal strip under maternal supervision before making their first independent hunting attempt. Wave washing is a third technique documented mainly in Antarctic waters. When a seal takes refuge on a floating ice platform, the group of orcas swims in perfectly synchronized parallel formation to create a wave that capsizes the ice or washes the animal into the water. The synchronization required is of such precision that all the orcas must begin their run at the exact same instant and maintain the formation throughout the entire displacement. Sequences have been documented in which the same group repeats the attack up to 9 consecutive times against the same ice flow, adjusting the angle of approach and the position of each individual in the formation based on the result of the previous attempt. The resident orcas of the North Pacific feed almost exclusively on salmon, specifically Chinook salmon, Oncorhynchus chawicha, the largest species and the one with the highest caloric content among Pacific salmonids. Resident orcas are capable of detecting individual salmon at distances of up to 100 meters through echolocation and pursuing them with a speed and maneuverability that salmon cannot match in open water. The transient orcas of the North Pacific, known as Biggs orcas, hunt exclusively marine mammals: seals, sea lions, porpoises, dolphins. They never consume fish even when they are available in abundance. They live in the same seas as the residents. They share the same waters for centuries. And yet they are so different in their behavior, their diet, their vocalizations, and their social structure that some researchers have proposed classifying them as distinct species. Their vocal dialects are completely distinct, to the point that researchers can identify which ecotype a given group belongs to, simply by analyzing recordings of their vocalizations without any need for visual identification. The social structure of orcas is one of the most complex documented in any non-human animal. The family groups of resident orcas are built around an older reproductive female, the matriarch, and her descendants of both sexes across up to 4 generations. Adult males of resident orcas remain with their mother's family group for their entire lives. They mate with females from other groups during temporary encounters, but always return to the maternal group. The longevity of females, which can exceed 90 years, creates situations in which the great-grandmother, grandmother, mother, and calves of the 4th generation coexist within the same group. Studies carried out on the southern resident orca populations of the North Pacific, one of the most studied groups in the world with more than 4 decades of continuous observation, have demonstrated that the presence of older post-reproductive females in the group, meaning females that no longer have offspring of their own, significantly increases the survival of the younger members of the group, especially during periods of salmon scarcity. These veteran females possess an accumulated knowledge of the historical locations of salmon schools at different times of year that proves critical when resources are scarce, and the individual memory of younger individuals does not cover equivalent periods of scarcity from the past. This is one of the few examples documented outside of human beings of the grandmother hypothesis, the evolutionary model that postulates that post-reproductive longevity in females of certain species has been positively selected because veteran individuals contribute more to the survival of their genes through assistance to descendants than they would through additional direct reproduction. The communication system of orcas is the most complex documented in any non-human animal. Each group of orcas has a repertoire of vocalizations that includes between 7 and 17 distinct call types, called discrete calls, each with a specific and recognizable acoustic structure. These calls are produced and understood by all members of the group and are not produced by any other group of orcas. They are the functional equivalent of a group dialect. 2 groups of resident orcas that share part of their territory and meet regularly have call repertoires that partially overlap, suggesting a common origin and gradual divergence. 2 groups that never meet have completely distinct repertoires. Researchers can determine which group an orca belongs to simply by analyzing its vocalizations. In addition to discrete calls, orcas produce high-frequency echolocation clicks to detect prey in conditions of low visibility, and high-frequency whistles whose exact communicative function is still being studied. And when the orcas arrive, everything changes. There is no animal in any ocean on the planet that does not fear orcas. Not because they are the largest, not because they are the fastest, but because they are the only ones that combine everything simultaneously and systematically. Physical power, speed superior to any shark, individual intelligence, collective intelligence that exponentially multiplies individual capabilities, technical knowledge transmitted culturally across dozens of generations, and numbers. Even the great white shark, with everything that 400 million years of evolution has given it, abandons the territory when the orcas arrive. Researchers from the Dyer Island Shark Research Group in South Africa have documented this behavior systematically in False Bay and in the surrounding waters of the Cape Peninsula. In multiple recorded episodes, the entry of orcas into areas of high great white shark density resulted in the immediate disappearance of the sharks from the area, sometimes within a matter of hours from the first acoustic detection of the orcas. In some cases, the sharks did not return to their usual territories for periods ranging from weeks to several months. In November 2017, 5 great white sharks were found stranded on the beaches of the Gansbai region in South Africa, with their livers extracted with a precision that only orcas are capable of executing. Orcas know exactly the location of a shark's liver and can extract it within minutes once they have immobilized the animal. The liver of a great white shark can weigh up to 100 kilograms and represents an extraordinarily concentrated source of lipid energy, with a caloric content that can provide the orcas with several days of energy reserves from a single extraction. Individual power yields to collective intelligence. 400 million years of evolution as a solitary predator yield to a few million years of brain development and social organization. The ocean does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most intelligent. The opening question of this story has its answer, and that answer opens another question. A question that this ocean has not had to ask itself at any other point in the last 100 million years. The ocean is changing. Its average surface temperature has increased by approximately 0.6 degrees Celsius since the pre-industrial period, with projections pointing to additional increases of between 1 and 4 degrees by the year 2100. The additional heat is altering the global thermohaline circulation, the system of deep ocean currents that distributes heat and nutrients across all the world's oceans. The Kuroshio current has intensified its flow in response to the warming of the Pacific, transporting warmer water toward higher latitudes and altering the distribution patterns of herring, mackerel, and squid along the entire coast of Japan. Phytoplankton, the foundation of the entire oceanic food chain, is responding to warming with changes in its geographic distribution that are reorganizing the geography of oceanic productivity. In many regions of the subtropical Pacific, phytoplankton biomass has declined between 10 and 30% since the 1980s. Without phytoplankton, there are no herring. Without herring, the chain is severed before it ever reaches the apex predators. Microplastics contaminate every layer of the ocean from the surface to the Challenger Deep, where they were documented in 2018. In the reefs of Okinawa, coral bleaching caused by the rise in water temperature is already a recurring phenomenon. Without the zooxanthellae expelled during bleaching, the coral dies. Without the coral, the clownfish loses its home. Without the clownfish, the anemone loses its cleaner. A reef that takes thousands of years to build can be destroyed in a single exceptionally hot summer. Sea turtles lose their nesting beaches as sea levels rise, flooding exactly the same points that their magnetic navigation systems have spent millions of years memorizing with millimetric precision. The great white shark loses its hunting grounds as its prey migrates following displaced currents. The sperm whale loses its giant squid as deep sea temperatures fluctuate and alter the distribution patterns of the prey that only it can reach. And the orcas, the most intelligent of all, lose the food web that their intelligence cannot replace. No hunting technique can compensate for the absence of herring. No group strategy can substitute for a functioning ecosystem. Japan has expanded its marine protected areas and implemented coral restoration programs in Okinawa. These are real efforts that produce locally positive results. But the Kuroshio current recognizes no administrative boundary. The temperature of the Pacific respects no protected area. The Kuroshio current keeps flowing. The waves keep breaking against the rocks of Okinawa. Beneath the surface, in the waters where light and shadow meet, and where the titans keep swimming, there is a kingdom that has existed for hundreds of millions of years. The great white shark keeps patrolling the middle depths. The orcas keep coordinating their hunts with the precision of a mechanism that has not failed in generations. The sperm whale keeps descending into the abyss with its 236 decibels piercing the darkness. The turtle keeps returning to its natal beach with a magnetic fidelity built over decades. And the clownfish keeps swimming among the tentacles of its anemone in the reef of Okinawa, protected by a layer of chemistry that has spent millions of years being perfectly sufficient for everything. Except for what is coming now.